Reviews are an essential resource in navigating the seemingly endless sea of game releases and providing prospective players with an understanding of what to expect from a title that piqued their interest. Sometimes, however, critics and gamers just aren't on the same page. In fact, this is at least part of the reason we started this channel, as we wanted to offer honest gaming coverage that comes from folks just like you. Yes, we are just a group of indie gaming fans that love sharing our opinions from a place of genuinely loving the variety and creativity of indie games. Think of us as part of the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, rather than the stuffy critics. I've reviewed over 1,000 games here at I Dream of Indie Games, and am sometimes baffled and shocked at how much my experience differs from the echo chambers of gaming. Here are 10 amazing indie games I love that I feel like gaming critics wrongfully shat on. Real quick, don't drop a dookie on us. Support independent content at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to gain Discord access and more. Like and subscribe so you don't miss a moment of indie gaming goodness, and hang out with GGF at twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames every Thursday. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. The first game I would like to shout out is Kawaii Desu, which will admittedly give your thumbs a Schwarzenegger-like workout, but it's worth the pain. While only 2 members of the gaming echo chamber could even be bothered to review the game, they wasted no time in aiming a perfectly crafted kamikaze crapper right on the proverbial windshield of this title. Kawaii Desu is an arcade rhythm action game that is certainly far from perfect, but really got its hooks into me early, and for whatever reason I couldn't put it down. Maybe it was the cute anime art style, or maybe it was the catchy pop music, or perhaps a combination of the two? Yeah, that's probably the case. You'll pick between a variety of adorable beings of the underworld on a quest to become the next top pop icon and collect souls. If you were a fan of One Finger Death Punch, there's a good chance you'll enjoy Kawaii Desu. You'll only need to use 2 buttons as you bash away at oncoming foes, attacking endlessly from the left and right sides of the screen. The real challenge of the game comes from how much punishment your fingers can take. If you are the fidgety type like me and you love the idea of just mashing away at buttons for a while, you'll be fine with Kawaii Desu. What really kept me going was the different unlockables that can be earned, however, which are just so friggin' cute you might turn into a magical rainbow and fly away if you can collect everything. While not without its flaws, Kawaii Desu is a really fun game in short bursts that deserved better than it received. Our next game is equally stupid, but in a similar fun way. Snaky Bus could only manage a meager 67 Metacritic, but delighted our very own Silent Signs to no end. Snaky Bus is best described as an arcade driving game of sorts, where you need to carefully navigate an ever-growing bus through cities, suburbs, racetracks, and more. Somewhat similar to the Sega classic Crazy Taxi, you'll be picking up random passengers along the way. You want to grow your bus as long as possible without stopping, which will kill the run. In the case of Snaky Bus, size definitely matters. It's an easy game to pick up and play, and even features a jump button oddly, which can make for some hilarious moments. If you are a fan of games like Donut County and the aforementioned Crazy Taxi, I think you'll find something to enjoy here. Critics had fun slapping Rose and Camellia collection across the face, dropping it to its knees with a disappointing 60 Metacritic score. But here at I Dream of Indie Games, our very own Barely Magic Mike had a blast waving his Joy-Cons around like a moron and delivering sweet slappy justice. Alright, so we are 3 for 3 on ridiculous over-the-top games so far, but what do they all have in common? They're fun! Rose and Camellia Collection will have you laughing within the first 30 seconds of gameplay, almost guaranteed. The goal of the game is to slap royalty in the face before they slap you, and while being entertained with a completely ridiculous story. There's really no game like this on the market, but the impressive presentation, simplistic slap-happy gameplay, and sheer comedic value made it easy for us to look past some nasty difficulty spikes and relatively short gameplay length. Eternights is a game that had decent hype leading up to its release, with many hoping that it would be the indie equivalent of a Persona title. Despite positive previews and generally speaking good word of mouth, critics were not entertained, smacking this one down with a mediocre 69, nice, on Metacritic. Though fans and I Dream of Indie Games were much more receptive. Our reviewer Ophidian Mind loved the game's dark storytelling, a story that features a bit of romance, sadness, and a whole lot of violence. The combat system is a blast with unique and enjoyable gameplay. The sim elements were also well executed. Eternights also has a great cast of characters that you'll remember long after you've finished it, and while some of the timing elements can be a little bit tricky-dicky and the visuals aren't amazing, the rest of the game is so good that it makes up for any of those shortcomings. Who doesn't love a charming point-and-click adventure from time to time, right? I'll tell you who, the Gaming Echo Chamber. Despite some excellent pixel art, very fun puzzles, and charming dialogue, Guard Duty only managed a 73 on Metacritic, which isn't egregiously bad, but you all know how highly some folks regard their beloved numerical aggregate scores, and it's likely that a low 70 score meant many missed out on this excellent release. Guard Duty calls back to classic titles like Discworld with its sense of humor, and puts you in control of a clumsy guard who's having one of the worst mornings ever. This guy's luck is about as good as Steve Bartman's. He needs to find a cure for some nasty hornet stings, but eventually gets caught up on a greater quest involving, you guessed it, a princess. The gameplay offers no surprises for point-and-click veterans, but works effectively. Puzzles are pretty easy for the most part, though the game won't exactly change your mind if you weren't a fan of the genre before. Voice acting is excellent, and there's a ton of it too, so there's just a lot to like about Guard Duty, and if you love the genre, it's pretty much a no-brainer. The Eternal Castle Remastered is a fascinating product because it is a remaster of a game that may have never even existed. That should give you a good idea of what you're in for. Regardless of the strange history, this is one of my favorite games that we've ever reviewed on the channel. It's a cinematic platformer similar to Out of This World, otherwise known as Another World, Ministry of Broadcast, or Flashback, games like that. If you aren't a fan of the genre, it goes without saying this one won't be for you. Another thing that possibly turned off critics is the art style, which to some looks like pixel vomit, and yet I find it strangely beautiful. This story is extremely cryptic, taking place in a sci-fi setting with players trying to collect 4 parts of a ship to enter the Eternal Castle. You'll need to be precise in your movements, and the game places a heavier emphasis on combat than this genre is usually known for. While not without its frustrations, I consider the Eternal Castle Remastered a bit of a masterpiece. Once it grabs you, it won't let go. It's a shame most critics didn't see the finer aspects of the Eternal Castle Remastered, smacking it down with a 73 Metacritic. Members of our Discord know that I am a big defender of Evil West, and with good reason. It's a great game that performs almost unbelievably well on Steam Deck. I still pick it up and play it from time to time. Evil West was also hit with the dreaded 73 Metacritic, but the reality of the situation is much different. It is a third-person Gears of War style romp with an over-the-top story involving vampires, fast and satisfying shooting action, and outstanding visuals. The goofy finishing moves are a blast, and you are also able to customize your loadout. Environments are fairly linear, but still fun to explore and interact with. It's the perfect example of a game being more focused on fun than perfection. Sometimes a game doesn't have to be ridiculously perfect to be entertaining, and in the end we found Evil West to be a hilarious rootin' shootin' good time. Sometimes critics just make you scratch your head entirely, which was the case when I saw the banner of the Maid on Metacritic, an excellent strategy RPG, barely given a C-. Banner of the Maid is one of my favorite strategy RPGs in a long time, featuring everything you would want from the genre. Great strategic gameplay, a politically powerful story with excellent art direction, and musical compositions that will make your heart soar. I fell in love with the world and characters as well as the gameplay. This game does so many things right that you'll easily look past any of the small shortcomings. There are tons of character classes and just about everything else that you could ever want from a strategy game, so just don't sleep on this one, folks. A Game of the Year winner at I Dream of Indie Games. It's hard to believe that Phoenotopia Awakening, one of the truly great indies, only received a lousy 72 on Metacritic. Where does one even begin with what makes this title so special? You play as a pink-haired protagonist in this single-player action RPG that calls back to Zelda 2. Gale is a great lead character who's trying to save her village, which has been abducted. This massive game has an overworld map, tons of dungeons and areas to explore, and comes in at up to a hefty 50 hours of gameplay if you want to seek everything out. There's a bit of cooking players can do, which is fun in this game, and the combat engine is highly enjoyable, a delicate dance between your stamina bar and striking at the right moment. The game encourages exploration to become stronger, find new items, and more weapons such as a slingshot. The dungeon design is awesome, full of bosses and puzzles, and side quests, there's so many. I haven't even touched on the outstanding soundtrack and art. If you don't own it, what are you doing? Don't let the critics rob you of this awesome adventure. I discovered the Samurai Jack series a few years late, but I absolutely love it, so I was very excited to see a video game launch a few years back called Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. I can kinda understand why some critics weren't big on this game because it does feel old, so if you don't have an attachment to the PS2 era of gaming, you might think it's a little clunky. However, I thought it was a really nice callback myself to the good old days under understanding that it is far from perfect. The art really nails the feel of the show, and the combat and platforming are serviceable. I like what they did with the Samurai Jack story, but again, it's not perfect. Hell, what game is? If you like the Samurai Jack series, I would be sure to check this one out and at least give it a try. And that's gonna do it for this list, folks. Thank you for supporting independent content, and we hope you found the next indie game of your dreams right here at I Dream of Indie Games.